Hello, I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and you're listening to Well, Hello Anxiety, a podcast where we end the struggle with anxiety and build our toolkit of practical skills to thrive. Honest, warm, generous, determined, smart, kind, courageous, funny, relatable, autistic, innovative, compassionate, anxious, a born leader, and authentic to her core. I quickly understood all of this and so much more about a guest I cannot wait to introduce you to when I heard her speak on a panel at an event last year. She probably only had the microphone for 20 minutes or so. I wish she'd had it for hours. I could have listened all evening, but she never said a word about any of these traits. They just shone through in the way that she spoke, and I cannot wait for you to meet her if you are not already acquainted. So I'm excited, obviously very excited, to introduce you to Cherie Clonan, who is the founder and CEO of Australia's leading social media training agency, The Digital Picnic. With a 15-year career in digital marketing, Cherie Clonan is a proud autistic ADHD woman. She's rapidly become well known for her progressive approach to leading her team in her human-centric, neuro-inclusive way. People are falling over themselves to work for Cherie and the beautiful team that she has curated at the Digital Picnic. And you just have to follow the Digital Picnic socials, read their website to see the love and care that Cherie has for everyone who works with her. And it's absolutely the way business should be done. She's a leader in so many ways. Cherie is a true champion of diversity and inclusion. Autism is no hindrance. It's an integral part of who she is and a major contributor to her success as a CEO. Cherie, I am so grateful for your time. So thank you for joining us here today on the podcast.
Thank you. That is the warmest intro I think I've ever heard. So thank you so much for making me feel so welcome.
Oh, gosh, it's an absolute pleasure and a joy. And yeah, just the night that I met you for the first time, which was at a beautiful sort of friend that we share, Amanda Thompson's event for her It Takes a Village series. I just felt, like I had to get to know you more and it's been lovely following your journey between then and now. So it's lovely to finally have the chance to chat. Cherie, you have such a beautiful understanding of yourself and the confidence to be exactly who you are. Is that something that developed over time, or can you sort of picture a turning point of sorts sort of over the years?
Yeah, sure. I'm glad you pick up on that. It's definitely been a journey that I've been on in a much more rapid way more recently. And I think, honestly, you get to a particular point in your life where you just get a little bit tired and sick of waiting for people to understand you and or, accept you. And so I can't describe it. There was just this moment, not really kicked off by any one thing, where I just said, stop waiting for people to understand or accept you and just radically accept yourself, And so I went on this absolute journey of understanding myself and therefore just not just accepting myself, but seriously celebrating, the person that I am. And I found after that I didn't need to everything that I was waiting for was no longer important, because you just have to start within and stop waiting, for folks around to do what you'd like them to do. Humans, unfortunately, aren't always going to do that for you. No. So you've got to start within. That's when you realize it's like that circle of control, type stuff. And I'm really glad that I got there. I do wish I'd got there sooner, but hey, that's the beauty of life, Yeah. And I guess if, like I said, not really kicked off by one or any real thing, to be really honest, it's just a collection of, life experiences. And also my role as CEO at the Digital Picnic, I owe it not just to myself, but to my team, to make sure I'm really aware of who I am and the impacts that I'll subsequently have on, people around me. And I just really hope they're good ones. So I want to make sure that I really deeply know self in order to better serve others around me. And that lends itself, beautifully to my sort of leadership approach, which is definitely servant, in nature. So yeah, it's been a beautiful journey, and I'm really proud and happy, and just yeah, thrilled that I'm where I'm at today.
Even through following your work, because you're so expressive, and I love the way you write. I love the way you talk. I love the way that your team share, and that you are really looking after everyone around you in inevitably the same way that you probably would have hoped to have been looked after as an employee once upon a time. And so you're in a position to be that leader, and through following you and the way that you operate, it's really, I've learned a lot from you, aside from the incredible work that you do in digital marketing, which is just exceptional. I really want to thank you for that, because it's almost like when you can't sort of be who you can't see, and when you are unapologetically yourself, you've got the freedom to be who you are, be open, be vulnerable, and yeah, that's something that I've really appreciated, and will continue to appreciate about you and the way that you work. And so I want to thank you for that. But before I go on to the next question, I just want to preface it, because I guess as an anxiety podcast, I want to ask you about your experience of anxiety, and please feel free to answer from wherever kind of feels most kind of powerful from your perspective, and just to give us an idea of where that's played a role in your life, I guess how you're managing it, and what you might like listeners to learn through your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really beautiful question. To be really honest, I'm actually just so glad we're living in a time where we're having these conversations and normalizing them and being really open about it. I look at my dad, who's honestly battled anxiety almost his entire life. And I just think he would have really benefited from growing up in this generation, to be really honest. So yeah, I'll start by saying that. But look, in terms of, I guess, my experience with anxiety and I guess how that's impacted me throughout the years. To be really honest, um, I guess my dance with anxiety started really young and in a pretty dark place,
Mm.
and that's because of childhood trauma, to be really honest. So,
Yeah.
a lot of people, when they sort of, I listen to people when they're like, share your earliest childhood memory, and I hear things like a birthday party that they can remember where it might have been an ice cream, birthday cake, or I don't know, like a particular experience with their parents and so on. But unfortunately for me, I grew up with a really unstable mum
Yeah.
in my early years before I thankfully made it to my dad, who's just the best human being I know, which makes him, honestly. Um,
Yeah.
weren't, and so I was with a really unstable mother who was drug impacted,
Mm.
addicted, and affected. And it was awful,
Yeah.
and I remember I don't share, a lot, but my sister and I always say, what's your earliest memory? And I can vividly remember the first memory that I had as a kid, and it was being shaken awake in the middle of the night. She would have been on some sort of rampage to probably get, honestly, unfortunately, like drugs. We were shaken awake, pulled out of bed, and always just plonked on a back seat of the car, driven around South Australia. I could tell she was a whole range of emotions: angry, stressed, distressed, crying. It would be a full roller coaster. I was 3 years old. And I remember just being so scared and
Mm.
seriously anxious. And so when I sort of started working with a therapist years ago, we had to go back to that memory. I was able to identify that, unfortunately for me, my first memory is anxiety, and so you can only imagine it's played, honestly, a huge role. I don't think Freud developed did around, nothingness. There's something in that. And
Mm.
sadly for me, that was one of the first memories, and anxiety went on to continuously feature in my life throughout the remainder of it up until today. But these days, it's not a dark sort of thing like that sort of obviously memory and experience that I've just shared with you. And look, to be really honest, even in that moment, I'm so glad that I had a little sister, 14 months younger than me, where we were connected through that. I'm glad I guess I'm glad I wasn't an only child at the time, or
Yeah.
that I had someone in that with me. Not that I'd wish that upon my sister, but I vividly remember holding her hand in the back seat of the car, and we were just so, oh my gosh, we have the closest relationship. Like we really do. And you can't not when you go through experiences like that.
Mm.
Obviously, my experience ended beautifully at age 5. My father won full custody of my sister and I. It was a full sliding doors moment. He saved my life. He really did. He's the best human being I know. And he is someone I would wish on everyone. People talk about generational wealth. He gave me the gift of what I believe to be true generational wealth, which is a regulated parent.
Yeah.
And he regulated me from the first day that he won custody of myself and my sister. He focused on nervous systems and making the home truly safe. He was so trauma informed, and he just led by example and continues to lead by example. And yeah, he saved my life. Now my dance with anxiety is it's different. I'm still an anxious human, but it's not dark anxiety like first memories of these days. It's sometimes even constructive anxiety. So
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Hey, I want to really acknowledge you for sharing with us here about the upbringing, or a little snapshot into the upbringing that is extremely difficult. And it's hard to even imagine what it must have been like for you to be going through that, and to know that, like, I got full body chills when you said about your dad winning full custody when you were 5, and to know that turning point has just led to us being here today, and to you being who you are, and to be you doing what you do and caring so deeply for the people around you, and also being really honest about the fact that anxiety is still with you. It can be very motivating, can't it? But also that you coming from a place now where you understand yourself well and you manage it, and what a gift that your dad has been and is in your life. And I've seen you share about him and just the absolute treasure that he is, and that you wish everybody could have had a dad like your dad. And so I really want to acknowledge you for sharing that with us and sharing a bit about your journey. And I think that what I learn the older I get, I'm 50 this month, Cherie. I'm really excited. I'm turning 50 in a couple of weeks. And so many people, like, it's so funny because my husband just tells everyone, like, we literally just had friends over to celebrate his birthday. And I had balloons that said 29 because that's kind of, I think, where he wants to stay. So it's very funny. One of the cards said happy 29th and 50th. It wasn't really for my birthday, but yeah, very funny. But the older I get, and no doubt, like you said earlier about kind of learning about yourself, I think that it takes a lot of time, doesn't it? It does take time, and we can often look back and think, I would have liked to have arrived at where I am sooner, but there's so much to be gained from the experience and the challenges. Not that you'd wish, anything troubling on anybody, but inevitably we all have had challenges in the past. And I'm just really, really thankful to your dad for, fighting really hard for you and your sister, and the difference that's made for you. You're the proudly autistic CEO of the Digital Picnic, and it's just the colour, the joy, just the kindness, the connection, the skill, the expertise, the professionalism, and the absolute leadership that shines through in everything that you guys do is really brilliant to sort of watch unfold online. Lovingly called TDP, and your website and socials, actually, I love this, often say that it's the nicest place on the internet, and I think that's for very good reason. And I also read on your website that in TDP land, clients don't come first, your employees do, because in almost 10 years, so congratulations on an approaching 10-year anniversary. It's very exciting. In almost 10 years of TDP, you found that when you take care of the people that you work with, your employees, they take care of your clients. And that's not what you would normally read on a website. That's really going quite against the tide, but it makes so much sense. And in fact, the effect of that is that the clients are loved and served and cared for over and above what they would be if they were first and not the employees. So I absolutely love it. You're a treasured leader. And I saw that your workplace was nominated as the best Australian workplace, best place to work in Australia in 2020. Can you tell us a bit more about what you've learned really makes the difference and creates a workplace that, as I said before, people just absolutely would love to work at? And I imagine that when people are working with you and your team, that they're there to stay.
They can be if they want to, but gosh, from day one, we've never assumed that they'll be here forever, for even a long time, to be really honest. And it's interesting when you take that demand away, and I say demand in inverted commas, people choose to stay. For quite a long time, when you think about like our industry and the associated retention rates within it, like really honestly, everyone that I'm looking at as I'm speaking to you right now should probably move on every 2 years in order to seriously grow a career. That's apparently the advice that you'd find on like your LinkedIns, your TikToks, and so on. Apparently that's the best way to sort of fast track salary growth and career growth. But our team choose to stay longer. Sometimes it gets to a point where I'm like, you genuinely hit a ceiling and we're a relatively small business. I'd hate for you to feel resentful, staying here. And we just have really honest, conversations around that, and they continue to choose to stay. And for those that move on, so completely celebrated for doing exactly that. So I guess in terms of, I don't know what, there's a lot of things that contribute to that, I guess. I think at its core, it's got to be something to do with psychological safety. And I think for me, like I just shared with you, that was modeled to me from my dad. I remember the feeling inside my body the minute I went from something that was unsafe to safe. And why do we apply that to only things in life that are non-work related? It absolutely should apply to workplaces as well. People spend 37 hours and for some workplaces upwards of that, each week at work. So it's probably really important to make sure at a bare minimum where they're spending that much time in their typical week, the place is safe. And so I'm really grateful that I have the lived experience of neurodivergency because I understand safety. I am a marginalized person. I know what it feels like to feel unsafe, be discriminated against, and so on. I'm raising 2 neurodivergent children. I know how unsafe a lot of Australian schools are from a setting perspective and the impact that has. So I just focus on what I can control, and that is in my little pocket of, the world. It's the psychological safety that I'm trying so hard, and it isn't easy. It's not an easy thing to cultivate, but it's the best thing that I try to do with my life in terms of work. I'm trying to cultivate genuine psychological safety here. And now I can see the impacts. I really can. It's the 40 to 50 DMs sitting in my LinkedIn in any given week from a plethora of just astonishingly great human beings who are like, how can I work here? And I just think, gosh, I wish my business was big enough to entertain, all of these requests. So you look for evidence of impact. For me, it's every time we put a roll up in an industry that claims hiring is apparently a little bit hard at the moment. It's just not the case for us. Our difficulty is that we have people applying for roles that they're overqualified for. And they're like, I understand that I have more years experience than what's been listed in the job ad, but I want to be here, and it's unbelievable. So I just, if money is the only thing that matters to people, and that's not my honestly big driving thing, but if nothing else, if we stripped the importance of being a good human and all of the essentials away, if people only care about money, well, you owe it to your profit and loss to just show up and be a seriously decent human, treat people right, pay them well, and design a workplace that folks genuinely want to come to, and you're actually going to win. If nothing else matters to you, well, financially, but for me, I focus on so much more than that. I'm really proud of what we're doing with the limited resources that we have as a small business. We don't even yet have an in-house HR, but I'm really proud that at the moment I'm able to pull off people and culture to a point where some of the things that I've described to you seem to be happening around us, and I know what contributes to that, and I'll keep doing this for as long as I can before we bring some of that support in from a people and culture perspective, absolutely, and continue on with the people and culture wins that we are having as a workplace. I'm really proud.
As you should be. And what a problem to have. It's again, you're so unique in the most special and wonderful way. And this is how we should all be living our life. I mean, when we treat each other well, and in any connection, in any collaboration, for everybody to feel safe and valued and seen and heard and understood as more than just the skills that we have, but who we are. I really appreciate that you see that, and you're leading the way, because not only are you living and breathing that in your workplace at TDP, you are sharing online, and you also have been named as a LinkedIn top voice, which I know you're so humble. So thank you for letting me sort of sing your praises the way that I am. But I think what I see, and especially as a woman of obviously, nearly half a century, who, like you, can think back to sort of my first memories and think about anxiety, and knowing I feel so passionate about mental health and well-being, and not just the absence of anxiety, but thriving and flourishing. And just to meet someone like you who is really leading the way as to how, if we operate as people, we lift everyone around us, and we take good care of ourselves in that way. And so you're obviously sharing your journey as a leader and as a CEO on LinkedIn and through your socials, and so you're actually sort of sharing these ideas with other people who can hopefully, like me, start to learn from this role modelling and adopt some of even some of what you're doing in their workplaces. And I wonder, you did say about the creating that culture. Is it possible to share just one thing that you feel makes a difference to how safe people feel in your workplace?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest focus for me is making sure that safety comes right from the top. Like I said before, like I've seen a lot of organizational leaders, not even just within my industry, but beyond that. Like I said, putting two neurodivergent kids through the Australian school setting, it is a really non-inclusive, discriminatory, ableist setting across most settings. Unfortunately, I'm really sorry if any educators are listening to that. And I don't mean to generalize, but it's just been our lived experience. And what I've found is where it goes wrong is there's a team of incredible teachers who want to do better, but can't, because the leadership from the top is where it goes horrifyingly wrong. And so I think about that a lot, and I want to make sure that I'm not that person, in my workplace. And so I want to make sure that the inclusion comes right from the top. The safety, I hope, like a lack of ego for me. I'm sure my team would describe me as being without ego. I can confidently say that. I'm a pretty humble soul, but I'm pretty confident with that piece. They know I'm not ego led, and it makes a difference. It really does. I've got a pretty good advantage in other areas, before marketing. So in a whole other lifetime, I was on a really different path, and I studied a postgrad in mental health. And, it's actually taken me until 2024 to realize, I look at my team sometimes and they can out paid ads, Google Analytics, anything. Honestly, they can outdo me on most of the seriously strong digital skills, and I'm glad. And so what I might lack in some of those hyper specialist things, I think I make up for in terms of other life experiences that I've had before I came to this industry, but this business. And I'm really glad I rolled in with that experience. So a postgrad in mental health, experience within that industry. And now I show up to leadership in a year, 2024 and beyond, that has never needed these soft skills from its organizational leaders more. And I just actually feel a little or even quite a lot ahead when I look at other leaders, to be really honest. And I hear the stories, from especially our industry, so agency settings of truly unsafe organizational leaders making their people feel just terrified to come to work. And my God, if you ever want to screw creativity and strategy, feel unsafe,
Yes, yes.
And so I try to be the antidote to that. And the result of that is just hyper creativity, hyper strategy, and I hope a really great workplace to come, whether it's in office the 6 days per month that we do or show up virtually the remainder of the month when we're working from home.
Thank you for giving us a little peek behind kind of what your background is and how you bring that to the workplace that you've created and the culture and the environment that you've created. And whenever I've corresponded with any of your staff, just absolute joy, just warmth, kindness, and I'm a firm believer that nothing's wasted. Nothing's ever wasted in our journey through life, and that sometimes things might not make sense. And of course, there are things that we would like to change if we could go back. But no matter what's happened in the past, which is outside of our control, that focus of control is on sort of here and now and what we can do moving forward. But hearing from you and learning from you that everything that you've experienced has really made the person that you are today, which is essentially, that's the same for all of us, in that we are the product of our experiences, but you've been able to build on even the very, very difficult times, the traumatic times, and learn what you need, and then bring what you needed and what made the difference to you to others. And so I really love that we can share this with the listeners today. And I hope anyone listening, if you are in a position to make change, or even if you're not, share the podcast or introduce the leadership to the work that Cherie's doing. Suggest that they follow Cherie on LinkedIn, and let this be an opportunity to potentially make some really significant change. And I think, Cherie, next week I'm speaking to a group of assistant principals at a conference, and the topic is really around how can assistant principals support the mental health and wellbeing of the staff. And psychological safety is something that I feel incredibly passionate about. And even recently I was re-listening to an older episode with Dr. Luke Beard, and I don't know if you've listened to that episode that I recorded about autism. And oh my gosh, I so appreciate him. And in fact, today I'm going to write him an email and say I re-listened to it and I love it just as much now, and please come back. And when I opened that episode, I read a passage that I was really reading something that he had written. I was quoting him, is probably the better way to put it. And it's all about safety. When we, like you were saying, when we feel psychologically safe, whether that's in a workplace, in a relationship, children in a classroom, that then a person is in the state of their nervous system where they can learn and connect and communicate and, like you say, be creative and live a rich life and hope and dream and plan and problem solve. And so in addition to everything else, I really appreciate that we've been able to have a really good chat about this idea. And if it's not something that's in your workplace or that you don't feel safe in your workplace, this is really hopefully very timely for you. When I heard you speak at the event that Amanda Thompson ran, the It Takes a Village event that she hosted, you shared a story of one of your staff members who you helped during a really tough time in the midst of COVID. And I would absolutely love for you to share that story about Dane, who is such a treasured colleague of yours, or employee, I should say. Can you tell us about what happened and how that all unfolded and what you did? I just love this.
I love that you love it. It's a great story, and the thing is, it's just such a simple story. That's the thing, isn't it? Like, we've been speaking now and touching on this theme. Like, wouldn't we all just want to commit to doing the most good we can do in this one life we're given, right? Like, I just can't relate to people who choose the difficult path, which is not honestly being great to either themselves or people around them, And so I choose logical, solutions oriented, just makes kind of sense paths in my life. And this is what leads to stories that you've said you enjoyed, and for me, it's simple. So what happened was, let's take us all back to March 2020. Not that a lot of Victorians will want to go back there. Last year, but for me in Melbourne especially, it was the worst time. It was just so difficult. Every day was difficult, truly, for a variety of different reasons. So we, at one particular point, we were hiring for a paid ads role. We're a digital marketing agency that specializes in paid advertising. So we were hiring for that. And I put the job ad live, and a lot of people applied. One of those people was Dane, and I thoroughly research each person that applies. I'm autistic. I'm actually a PDA autistic woman, so a really big feature of PDA profiles is that we have often, I don't want to generalize, but I've read a lot about this. We have usually got a really intense special interest in people. So that's definitely me.
Just before, sorry to cut you off, but could you please just define PDA for the listeners who are not familiar with PDA?
Absolutely. So PDA stands for pathological demand avoidance. A lot of other PDAs prefer to refer to it as persistent drive for autonomy. I don't mind either. I can identify as pathologically demand avoidant as well. My husband would say an absolute persistent drive for autonomy. So in short, our nervous systems are built completely different. So we go through life seeing what a lot of other people would consider to be a demand. We just see it all differently, and some things that others wouldn't find demanding, we do. For me, it's picking up the phone and making a phone call to book in a hotel in another state, or just simple things like that, right? Nervous systems are built really different. So my life, I build it around low demand. And as a result, this is probably absolutely what lent itself to this situation with Dane, in that I don't like big demands. I prefer to just get to the right sort of decision with minimal sort of demands in the way to sort of really dysregulate my nervous system.
Yeah.
So he applied. I could see, unfortunately, that he had no paid ads experience. I definitely went through his profile, his LinkedIn profile, his resume, and then I got to his cover letter. And what agonized me was I could already at this point recognize you're not qualified for this role. And I'm sorry to say it, but in the space of paid ads, which is a hyper specialized area, I knew our clients would eat that person alive. And, in any other, honestly, any other climate where we weren't in significant lockdown with less ability to mentor, I probably could have taken a chance on him and mentored and so on, but we couldn't at that time. So I went to reject, but I looked at his cover letter, and what he'd included in it was devastating. And it was that he was new to Australia. When you're new to Australia, you don't have always the ability to couch surf, or you haven't got this big friendship pool where they could help you out if you find yourself in the rough spot. And he had been made redundant at an agency because of COVID, and he had found himself experiencing homelessness as a result of that. No couches to surf, nowhere to live, locked away from family, literally not able to fly home to safety, and in a really difficult spot. And I was devastated because I actually knew I can't hire you into this role, but I hate knowing that you're struggling with what you're struggling with. So I decided we're locked out of our offices and we're paying a lot of money each year for them. We're a paperless organisation, so there's no risk in opening our offices to basically anyone. They're not going to read anything confidential or do anything unsafe, in any way, shape or form. So I felt like I arrived at a quick, easy, logical, people celebrating solution. And that was that I wrote back, I emailed him back and I said, hey, I need more experience with paid ads, but your cover letters really grabbed me. I hate seeing that you're in a tough situation. I'd love to offer you, first and foremost, we gave him $1,000, just cash injection to bank account because I hate seeing people in the position that he was in. And if I'm in a position to help, I will. And we then collaborated with a chef in Melbourne who'd also lost his job. So it felt like two people winning in the same situation. So we collaborated with the chef, got a heap of meals made up for Dane. So two people winning in that situation. And then the final thing, and this was the bigger thing, we said, come to our office. We have a kitchen there, bathroom, everything you'll need short term. The only thing we want in return is for you to water our plants. We're really worried about them.
Oh, it sounds like a pretty good deal.
So he moved in and he joined our team WhatsApp thread, and he was just sharing funny videos of just different things. And I realized very quickly, you are a really talented content creator. And I knew he was a content boy. I could see it from his LinkedIn profile. And I remember thinking at the time, as soon as a content role pops up, I'm going to give it to this beautiful man. And so a content role popped up and we offered it to him. And since then, he's had 2 promotions. I think he's itching for the next one, which I'd love to, we've got growth on the horizon. So I hope to God that is him if he chooses to stay with us and so on. But he's had already a great career with us, some beautiful experiences. He's just a treasured member of the team and we all absolutely love him. And I'm just so glad that his short-term difficult spot led to someone who can, I'm a solutions-oriented person and a people lover and celebrator. And so I feel like the two things came together in this perfect little situation where good prevailed and a great outcome prevailed. And more recently, I got to meet his mum. She couldn't even get through a sentence without crying.
Oh, I bet.
Overseas to meet us and thank us, and we were just crying and hugging.
Yeah.
I'm a mum. I know what it's like when your little one is somewhere else and experiencing loss of job and therefore loss of home. And I just was so happy to hug that beautiful woman and say, I've got him. Like you can breathe easy knowing I've got this. I'm going to look after him, and we're going to do right by him, and he's going to have a great career here for as long as he'd like to stay. And I'm glad that's just a healing experience. My sister lives in Scotland. My dad panics all the time about how she's going and are people looking after her. And it was just that like moment where I could just picture my sister and I just know my dad would be like, please look after her. And that's what we're doing.
And that's what you're doing. And he is so lovable. I love him. Please.
Oh, obsessed with him. He's so stunning. It's just a stunning human being inside and out.
Yeah, he just needed a break. He needed a break.
Yes,
Yeah.
he needed a break. He needed the privilege of couch surfing or whatever it was. And he didn't have that privilege, but I have the privilege. I have enough privilege to be able to justify hundreds of thousands of dollars on a yearly rental, which we weren't even freaking using. So I was like, here's the keys.
And did he keep the plants alive?
Yes.
Excellent. He paid his dues.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Honestly, please, if you're not, or if you're a listener, and even if you're not sort of walking in a professional path or a personal path where paid ads and the brilliant marketing that the Digital Picnic can support you with, please just follow their Instagram page and jump on and follow Cherie, because it's joyful. It really is a light in a lot of the dark that we can see online, and Dane certainly shines bright. So please pass on a thank you to him from me, because he's brought me a lot of joy as well. Cherie, some listeners will be on their very own journey with autism and are hearing from you about your own journey and about parenting 2 neurodivergent children. And I wonder if a listener is a parent or a teacher and is sort of looking for sort of more ways to support the people that they work with. What would you like for them to know?
Yeah. I think you owe it to yourself if it's you going on the journey of having potentially been diagnosed as a neurodivergent person, you owe it to yourself to radically understand yourself, and especially for those raising little humans. I'm going to sort of say more than ever, you owe it to those little humans to radically understand them. So you have to go on a full journey. And to be really honest, you'll find as you go further along the journey that you have to forget everything you ever thought was true of parenting because it doesn't apply to raising neurodivergent humans. It's a whole different life. And we only get one life and we only get one opportunity to have an incredible relationship with our children. So please leave all previous expectations at the door and go on that journey. Understand how to seriously be a safe person to those little humans that you've created, and you'll quickly want to go on the path of understanding neurodivergent nervous systems. They're so different. And I'm going to use my husband here, and I do this knowing he won't mind. He was raised like in a really neurotypical household, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so his expectations were just so different of us, of me, of our children, and so on. And I think for a little while there, I'd say about 12-ish months post-diagnosis, for our kids, he was on that resistance, like, no, they can do this, they can sit still in a restaurant, they need to do X, Y, and Z. And I just could see the relationship fragmenting between him and our children, just honestly a little, and even becoming a lot, And I sat him down one night and I just had like a bit of a pep talk, and I said, what legacy? Let's talk legacy. What do you want your kids to remember you as being for them, feeling like to them, and so on? Because if you want to keep fighting, you're doing the worst thing for our kids, both of them PDA, autistic kids. You are just wreaking havoc on their nervous systems, So let's go on a journey of education together. You're going to have to forget everything that you thought was true of parenting, and you're just going to have to recognize we made different kids. So we have to go on a completely different journey, and we just can't compare ourselves to whoever anymore. And I'm, glad he was all in. He just needed that pep talk. And we were all in together. We did all of the courses, but we picked really neuro-affirming teachers. So Sondia from Onwards and Upwards Psychology was our resource and still is, and she teaches on autism, ADHD, PDA, nervous systems, low demand parenting styles that are much more suitable to our particular neurodivergent kids, and I would say neurodivergent kids in general. Our home has never been happier. It's never been safer. It is a joy to see my husband be so adored by our children. He's a safe person to them, and he's even had to step up in moments with friends or relatives who are doing unsafe things for our kids, and he's had to say, no, stop. And he can now because he's educated. So education is one of the most powerful things that we have available to us. And I would just say to anyone listening, go all in, because you've only got one opportunity to have the best relationship you can possibly have with your kids and yourself if it's you on that journey, and just be that best version of. The other option is devastating. You would not want it to be the other way. So that would be my advice to any sort of folks listening in, and it applies to teachers and educators as well. I can think of my son's core and maths teacher in year 7 and 8 at the moment. I would wish him on every Australian kid. He is I can't even talk about him without crying. He is the best. He is just the best. And he's safety and psychological safety and an ally to neurodivergent kids, and he understands nervous systems without probably even realizing how deeply he does understand it. So to our educators, be Mr. Johnston, please. Like, The legacy, the impact, it's absolutely stunning. You'll be remembered for all of the right reasons forever. And the thing about that is when you go in deciding to be an absolute ally to your neurodivergent kids in your classrooms, you're also safe to your neurotypical kids. But on the flip side, when we only factor in safety to neurotypical folk, our neurotypical are included and celebrated and seen, but our neurodivergent folk are traumatized. So why wouldn't we just choose including all? Neurotypicals benefit from neurodivergent considerations and accommodations, but the other way around, there's a whole group of people who don't just miss out, they're genuinely traumatized, so make good decisions. Absolutely.
Good decisions. The word legacy, that's going to really stick with me, and I think that's probably going to stick with a lot of our listeners, and we can all reflect, and we started this conversation where you so openly shared about, I guess, the legacy of each of your parents, and we can all reflect on our parents and teachers, and it's something that I love to do when I speak to groups of teachers, is to say, think of that teacher that you just adored. What was it about them that has stuck with you to now when you're an adult, or maybe a parent or a grandparent, no matter who you are and where you are, what stuck, what made the difference? Because no matter what path we're walking in life, when we can be a safe place for people to land, I suppose, in terms of our regulation and our nervous system, then everything else grows from that. That's kind of like the fertile soil from which everything grows. And so, Mr. Johnston, a huge shout out. And Cherie, gosh, I think it's been quite evident from this whole conversation just how much I absolutely adore you, and listeners will know why now after hearing from you and learning from you. And I so appreciate what you've shared. And I really would love for you to share with our listeners, where can they reach out to connect with TDP, whether that's just a follow in the joy that is the digital picnic, or reach out for support with the incredible work that you do in digital marketing, or on LinkedIn. How can people find and follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I've loved having this conversation with you as well, and love what you're doing, making a really positive impact. So I guess in terms of reaching out, I love LinkedIn. That's my favorite platform. So if anyone wants to connect, I'm Cherie Clonan there. Otherwise, everything my team related and so on, and digital marketing, you can find us on Instagram over at the Digital Picnic. And then from there, however we can serve. We're passionate servant folk in our industry, and we lead with integrity and just radical honesty within our industry, which is, I hope, really refreshing. Our industry isn't always known for it, so we're really grateful to show up in that way. So just following us on those two platforms, you would quickly figure out how we might be able to serve you. But I honestly just always hope that it's just purely the content to begin with, and only that for a lot of people. If it's nothing more than that, then that's legacy and impact. Anything beyond that, we do the typical. We're specialised in paid ads, and we also teach. So there's a lot of ways we can help.
And that you do, and you're so generous in what you share for people to follow and learn, and build their skills up until a point where they want to sort of come on board and start working. So your legacy is one of love and kindness and knowledge and wisdom and learning and leading. And I want to say a huge thank you again to you for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, Cherie. And Cherie is spelled Cherie, and Clonan is Clonan. And so, yeah, please reach out and connect with Cherie, but sounds like her DMs are full, so maybe hold off on that. So, yeah, thanks again for listening. Thank you for being a part of this beautiful podcast community, and I cannot wait to be back with you for another episode next week. Okay, bye. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr. Jodi Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodirichardson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time.